Today, let's look at the history of this bottle from Mount Holly, New Jersey, on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. There is only one little piece of history online about this company, and it's found in a book called Histories of New Jersey, written in 1882. Nichols and Nippins, dealers in wines, liquors, and bottled beer, etc., on Mill Street opposite Pine. 2 years ago, these gentlemen succeeded to the only business in their line in Mount Holly, having purchased out their predecessor in trade, and since their inception, they have largely increased their business. The store occupied is a 3-story brick building, 25 by 40 feet, and the bottling establishment is in the rear. I think it's this address based on the description of the 3-story brick building at Mills and Pine. The stock carried bears an estimated value of $5,500 and is composed of a fine assortment of wines, liquors, and bottled beer, and sales are considerable, and a large wagon trade is done in bottled beer and soda water, ginger ale, and sarsaparilla. There are 5 employees. It took a lot of digging and not a lot of finding for these 2 guys. This particular partnership didn't last very long, and I don't think either of them ended up becoming millionaires, so there's not much in the history books for them. I think regular working Joes get lost in history. James P. Nichols was born in 1844 in New Jersey. The last time I found him mentioned is in a 1920 census, and he's 75. His wife has already passed, and he's living with his daughter's family. I can't find when he died. I don't think he makes it to the next census. His business partner, Henry Nippins, was born in 1846 in New Jersey. They were both listed as grocers in the same area for some years. It shows them going into business together selling liquors and wines about 1880. Henry Nippins died 9 years after they partnered of pneumonia at age 50. Then Nichols partners with a guy named James Martin. So this bottle was made between 1880 and 1889. In case you don't have a calculator, that's 130 to 140 years ago. You can see huge air bubbles from being blown in a mold. Bubbles like this don't appear in bottles made after 1920. You can see that the seam ends, and to form the neck, the glass is stretched and even twisted some in this case. Notice how the bubbles are stretched too? It's pretty cool. The top is called a blob top, made with a tooled finish. This oval with the words is called the Slug Plate. This ceramic piece has a rubber gasket to form a seal, and the closure is called a Lightening type swing closure. You might think, why not just cork it? The need for different closures besides the cork was mostly because it was inefficient. The cork was inserted, then driven in by a wooden mallet, which broke the bottle sometimes. Not to mention it was slow and labor-intensive to cork hundreds of bottles a day. And corking and recorking was not always efficient for keeping the contents fresh, so bottlers were always trying to think of better enclosures. Lightning type enclosures were most popular on beer and many soda bottles from the 1880s into the 1920s. This closure was invented and patented by Charles D. Quillfeldt of New York City in 1875. Carl Hutter took the Lightning type swing closure idea and designed this ceramic closure around 1892. I just noticed mine says K. Hutter at the bottom of my ceramic piece. The one on the right is what it's supposed to look like. The seal is composed of a neck wire, which is right here, it twists right there, a lever wire, and this is called the bail, this piece right here. This bottle is over 130 years old, and the mechanisms still work. If you notice, the bottle says, "This bottle not to be sold." Some other phrases you might see is reuse prohibited or registered. This was common during the 1880s into the 1930s. The idea was that bottlers wanted you to bring the bottle back when you were done with it. It would be recleaned and rebottled and sold again. When you purchased a beverage from a company, you were only buying the beverage. The bottle was still owned by the company. You were supposed to get the bottle back to the proper owners when you were finished with it. I've seen a few disputes in these old books where companies were in court because one company was bottling their contents and another company's bottles. I saw a dispute where one company, A, was suing another company, B, because company B had about $3,000 worth of company A's bottles in their possession. I'm sure many customers did get their bottles back to the company, but I'm sure many customers also just tossed them when they were done with them, or they were just too lazy to return them, which was costly for the company. I found an article where a local bottle hustler was hired to visit local customers' houses and local businesses looking for stray bottles or barrels that were purchased and not returned. He would collect for all the companies in the area and get them to their proper owners. In this article, the bottle hustler told a story of a time that he went to a customer's house and he asked if she had any registered bottles, and she said that she would give them to him when she was done with them. Turns out, she was filling them with homemade ketchup and chow chow. I never heard of chow chow before. Turns out it's a type of relish made with vegetables to garnish meats or mashed potatoes. Anyways, he said, "Ma'am, it's illegal to reuse these bottles for use other than the originally intended use." And she just shooed him away and said he can have them when she's done with them. He goes on to say that businesses lose thousands of bottles to this type of thing every year. So apparently this bottle hustler was an important guy to the bottling companies. He recovered a lot which would have otherwise been lost. Well, hope you enjoyed these little bits of history. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching.